pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our chairman's under the weather, so stuck with me for a little bit. Okay, at this time, we have the election of officers. At this time, I'll take any recommendations or for chairman.
I nominate Councilman Comfort for chairman.
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Anybody else before we go on? Being none, all them in favor, raise your right hand. All them opposed, the same. Okay, at this time, vice chair.
Mr. Acting Chairman, I guess I move that we have Councilman Wheeler as our vice chair.
Okay, is there any other ones? There being none,
You want a
all
second?
them, yeah, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. There being no other ones, we have a second. So all them in favor, raise your right hand. All them opposed, the same. Okay, at this time, I'll turn it over to the chairman. Yep. You want to move all the way down to next to her?
So she can tell me what to do. All right, our next item on the agenda is ordinance for payments under $25. Ordinance 2022-01. Kay Gatton, would you like to address the council?
Morning.
Hey, Gatton, Whitley County Treasurer. I come to you with an ordinance that we not split any bills that are taxes under $25. The system is already set up this way, the new software. We just need the ordinance to be passed to go along with it.
Any questions?
Have an ordinance number.
2022-01.
I make a motion, we adopt ordinance 2022-01.
We have a motion, a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of adopting ordinance 2022-01, please signify by raising your right hand. To record show all members present voted for the ordinance. We have a series of additional appropriation requests. So we'll just take these in order and vote on them one at a time since they're multiple departments. Building and planning. Anyone?
I was asked to be here at the very last minute, so hopefully I'm talking about the same thing that you're talking about.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm Amanda Thompson. I'm the assistant planner, office manager for the planning and building department.
And this is in regard to a refactoring of the position and thus a salary increase. Is that what you're here to talk about?
Okay, sure. Do you have any questions about that?
Hearing no questions or discussions, do I have a motion?
Well, did this go through the personnel committee?
Yeah, and last month we approved the changes. Now we just need to make the additional appropriation for that. So the council did approve this. We just need to make the appropriation.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any other questions?
That was for the amount of $1,836, correct?
Yes. All in favor of the additional appropriation resolution for planning and building for personnel services? Raise your right hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries. The second additional appropriation is for community corrections, and Paula indicated she would not be here. Is there anyone to speak to this for community corrections? According to our notes from Tiffany, the shift supervisor was listed in the budget process incorrectly. This was corrected in the salary ordinance. We just need to do the additional appropriation. Motion, and is there a second?
I'll second
All in favor, say aye.
it. Aye.
Keep moving this along. Next item. Community corrections as well. This is an additional appropriation because the case manager, I'm sorry, I have to correct that. The one we just passed was regarding the case manager for $46,000. This next additional appropriation is, again, community corrections. Shift supervisor's dollar amount was incorrect. It is correct in the salary ordinance. We just need to approve the additional appropriation. This would be $559.
I thought we already did that when we were going to move to the
Yeah.
next one.
I did them backwards.
You
My
did them
mistake.
back.
So if we need to redo that, let me know.
So we have already approved the 46,348.
Yes, because that was the case manager that was missed.
Okay.
And now we're looking at $559 to correct the shift supervisor position. And again, this was listed correctly on the salary ordinance. We just need to do the additional appropriation. And all of these funds are out of community corrections project funds, not the general fund.
I make a motion, we accept.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. And now this is again, community corrections regarding their group insurance. When Paula was able to reduce the funds from general fund, that was much appreciated by the general fund and the council, but now she needs to put the money for insurance back in from the project income user fees. So again, these are funds, 275,000 generated by the user fees, and this is for group insurance. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries unanimously. Our next would be additional appropriation for the Health Department from the Coronavirus Relief Fund. You see personnel services, supplies, other services and charges, and capital outlays for a total additional appropriation of $55,000. Explanation says for some reason during budget time, this was input for the 2023 budget, not 2022. So it was missed. Go ahead, Scott.
It's, you have to help me on this, Tiffany, because I don't know. I don't know. Is this for to cover the FICA and insurance? That's what I'm sorry.
Based off the notes, it looks like somehow in the budget projection it was put in 2023. So to me, it looked like it was not really on your end.
Yeah, it wasn't on.
Right.
Let's see.
Yeah.
But we do have encumbrance if you want to talk about that.
Oh, not yet.
Yeah, okay.
So essentially, these are funds that were missed in the budget process. And they do come out of the Coronavirus Relief Fund, so they need to be accounted for separately. And they'll be used for these various operational lines in the health department.
But we have the money through.
Yes.
Corona. Okay.
How much is left in there? You know,
How much money did you guys approve to put in there for 2022?
2023.
For 2022, it was just accidentally put in 20.
Must have been a clerical mistake.
Correct. To get into that, system of government engineer.
Okay.
I move we approve 55,000.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand and show again it is unanimous of members present. Community corrections pretrial. Our final additional appropriation is for community corrections, the pretrial division. Pretrial assistant dollars amount were wrong in the financial software and gateway. It was listed correctly in the salary ordinance. We just need to do an additional. So essentially, it was correct in the ordinance, was put wrong into the state gateway system. So we need to do an additional appropriation to get that set to the correct amount. It's for $1,127.
I make a motion, we accept.
Have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand and let the minutes show that it was unanimous from those members present and voting. Wasn't that fun? Next on our list of items are encumbrance requests. We have a tally sheet that indicates all of them. That indicates that we are able to do all of these with a single vote, but we would take the opportunity to invite anyone who wants to speak to those. And if you guys have any questions. So the first encumbrance is from the Planning and Building Department. It is from the general fund for equipment. It's Nathan here. Would you like to speak to that, Nathan?
This is the equipment for outfitting the basement meeting room with video. We got that invoice, and due to equipment ordering delays, supply chain issues, won't come in until this year, so we can't pay it out until this year.
Any questions for Nathan?
We talked about this before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have an encumbrance from CEDAT for on-site, off-site for $23,000. And that is from City Ford for 2022 Ford Maverick.
Yeah, so this was for a planning building vehicle that was approved in 21. Obviously, the vehicle didn't get here, so want to encumber that money so it doesn't come out of our CEDAT plan.
Any questions for Chad?
Which department does this vehicle go to?
What's that?
Which department is this vehicle?
It'll go to planning and building.
Okay.
Scott, if you'd like to walk back up. The health department has 5 line items, funds they would like to encumber.
Just a few little things here that came in at the end of December, early January, and since they were still, had that covered in the budget from last year, we'd ask for those to continue with it. Not a significant amount, but just enough to get through. I do think that if you looked at the budget this year, we still more than that amount went back into the general fund from other items, so we're just asking for a tad bit there.
Any questions?
You have all this ordered or it's going to come in, but it's not, you won't have an invoice until next year?
Well, in January here, yes.
In January, I'm sorry, this
Correct.
year, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And we need to put all the documentation with encumbrance to the auditor's office.
Okay.
Things have already been invoiced in.
All right.
The reason why postage is high is because the state law requires the health department to send in animal bites. So anytime a dog, cat, bat, whatever bites somebody, we have to pay for that to be shipped to the state. So it's one of those unfunded mandates.
Thank you.
Scott, all these that you had listed from Amazon
Yeah.
that come in, you brought all that in? I mean, that come in?
It has come in, yes. That's for weights and measures department.
I see you got a pair of men's shoes on there. Is that,
Well, yeah, they're for oil and gas. When you get exposed to see it's pumping gas and it's in the oil and stuff like that, that way they're resistant to that.
is that something new? Or is that something you've always did?
It's not anything new. I just would throw my Walmart shoes away after that. Since it's not myself doing it anymore, I thought it'd be better to protect the personnel.
Any other questions regarding the encumbrances? Scott, you want to give us any other information from the health department at this point in time?
So obviously coronavirus is big right now. I have a lot of sick people. Basically, November 9th is the day it started ramping up in Northeast Indiana. The CDC backtracked this week saying that they misread the calculations that really 78% of COVID cases still in Indiana are Delta virus, not Omicron. So they widely overestimated that. So I tell people, if you're sick, you still need to go to the hospital because it's more likely still Delta, which is a more difficult version of coronavirus. And then Omicron's about 22% of cases. We're seeing an uptick in influenza. They had almost 200 cases last week at Parkview for influenza A. So that's also there. We're also having a lot of normal rhinovirus out there where people are very, very sick. They're being tested for coronavirus and influenza A, both negative, but they're still running temperatures and feeling ill. So a lot of sickness out there. So I encourage everybody to wash their hands every time they leave their desk or come back from home and all that good stuff. We're still, even though we're the 5th highest number of positive cases in Northeast Indiana, still the lowest in deaths by far among our other counties. So I consider us fortunate yet for that. We're still doing vaccinations every Thursday. We can walk in from 9 to 12 or 1 to 4 to get your vaccination. And we are scheduling some other days when April has time in there, but you'd have to go online to get scheduled. But we do take walk-ins on Thursdays. So.
Does that include the boosters?
Yes, boosters definitely. So you can get your first, second, or booster shot at the Health Department on Thursdays.
That's what Wolo stated this morning, that we don't have Omicron as bad as that they're afraid it's going to come.
Well, the bad thing is the federal government listened to what the CDC had to say, and so they backtracked on their the antibiotic infusion and started restricting that to the states based upon that information. And to come to find out, no, that was incorrect. So the states really still need to have those infusions. So
I move.
Okay,
Well,
we're going to move them all together.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Scott? Looks like Highway Department is next. You want to come and introduce yourself as our new Highway Department Director?
Take this opportunity to introduce myself to the council. My name is Caitlin Fry. I go by Katie, but I am the newly appointed Highway Director as of December 26th. As for our encumbrance that we're asking for, we did, I think it's kind of common right now that we're having issues with supply and things getting here when we estimated, but we did order a couple of snowplow trucks last year from Cell King, and they are still being worked on. So we have not been able to be billed for that yet. I actually don't even know if we're going to still yet end up with them this year. So we wanted to encumber the money from the budget last year. I don't have the exact figure, but I think it's 299,000. But we wanted to encumber that to be able to hopefully pay for that equipment for this coming year. And then also we have the money in the current budget for the equipment that we had in the plan to purchase this year. So we just wanted to be able to use those funds appropriately. And then if anybody had any questions for me while I'm up here.
Okay, Katie, are you in a position to speak for the engineer encumbrance for the bridge?
I am.
Okay. Any more questions for Katie? Thank you very much, and welcome to your new position. County clerk.
I will speak for her.
Okay.
She emailed me this morning. She's not feeling well, so she was out. Looks like she had two. One was paying for the election conference. And the next was to purchase full pads for the election conference. They need 2 full pads for every precinct, and they are going to be short.
The actual encumbrance indicates maintenance for 8,250. Is that the equipment? That's what the numbers indicate for the pads.
There's an invoice,
On the back,
yeah.
Right.
There's 5 of each. 5.
So does line item matter for the auditor's office?
It's other than like, she can transfer funds and here. Otherwise, you have to come back to approval if it's out of there.
So
I wasn't aware of it until this morning. what she was doing.
So we can pass this in the auditor's office, just make us aware if the transfer happens. Okay. And then any other questions about the election equipment?
And these iPads are for who?
They're for the election, the poll pads are for the election.
That's how you check people in.
What's that?
You check people in with them.
Okay.
And then the other item is for the election meeting convention or conference. Are those figures within normal for 4 people to attend? Okay. Any other questions regarding the poll pads and the election meeting conference? Okay, now if we need to go back to the highway department sheet, because our former highway department director and engineer submitted also an encumbrance for bridge replacement upon the same sheet. You see the invoice on the back of that sheet from R.L. McCoy for a bridge contract that's already in place and begun. The request is to encumber $496,961.01 for this bridge project. Any questions or concerns there?
Co-chair, you've been on here long enough. We've done this in the past, haven't we, on the bridge replacement? That's almost a normal every year encumbrance that we do.
He has,
It's just the way everything falls in place. Okay.
normally he has a 5-year plan.
Yep.
And that falls into that 5-year plan.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the 2021 encumbrance requests? That would be this sheet.
I move.
A motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the 2021 encumbrance requests, raise your right hand. And let the minutes show that it was unanimous by all members present.
Mr. Chairman, on my agenda, it also shows Sheriff Gatton with the traveler's insurance check that we need to address.
That was updated.
Jason, you want to come up and address that? I'm sorry. Yes, I have.
You already moved that, right? We got the sheet for it. Morning, Jason Spencer, Chief Deputy, Sheriff's
Mine's
Department.
not updated.
That was the settlement for the vehicle accident we had early December, about 1:30 in the morning. So that was all settled out. Travelers did a good job. They always do. I've worked with them many times and they've done a great job. So vehicle, most of the equipment was a total loss. Obviously, that was the rollover of South State Road 9, third shift. So basically what it is, that's payment for the equipment and the car. When Tim called about the amount, a lot of times when we get insurance checks, there sometimes maybe the animal car accident for lower amounts. This was a little bit higher because it dealt with the whole car. That car only had 14,000 miles on it. So with the vehicles now in not even being able to get cars right now, I thought it was better to go ahead and put that in cum cap. That way, right now, what we have is I have 4 vehicles I need to pick up, and that was the ones that I got for in 2021, 422. So those came in December. Just going to pick those up. Now this would be an insurance replacement. Reason we put that in cum cap and not garage is the fact that I can put that back and wait until maybe mid 22 if I need to. Vehicles aren't even going to roll until probably July, August anyway. So we can replace that car now, get him in a replacement, and we'll still be okay. And then look for maybe a 22, even when it comes available early fall, late summer. So not in a hurry on that one. We're still, but I think that money's better in cum cap. We can draw to that at a later time, submit the claims and stuff when we go to build. So, and Campbell's already put it over there.
All right, the transfer's already been made.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to speak on part of that cum cap. I don't believe that's where the sheriff's cars need to be paid out of. I think it ought to be paid out of the safety tax. That's why we got it. That's part of safety. And I think we need to, as council, I think we need to really look at that and get the buying of the police cars out of cum cap and put it in the safety tax line item.
Anyone else want to address this?
Obviously, if we're gonna do that, we need to study that a little bit and see what the history of both accounts are.
The cum cap is basically designed for buildings use, repair and that kind of.
But whatever year,
Right.
forever. So yeah, I don't have anything on the cum cap part of it.
And then sometimes you buy them out of work or
The
the
commissary.
commissary too.
Yeah, we've had the detective vehicles before. Just because we've never, since I've been there, we've always maintained and be able to get by on 3 cars. And now, obviously, we have more personnel than what we ever had 20 years ago. We've never bumped that up. So kind of what we did is like maybe in the transport commissary, we got the van for the groceries and things like that. We've been all paid for that out of commissary. So instead of coming back and raising that back up, we've actually been able to use commissary for that to kind of offset that kind of growth in the past 10, 15 years. So it's worked.
Okay. And when will the 2 new cars be able to go into service?
They have to be picked up from Highland.
Oh, so they're already,
They're
they're
ready.
finished?
No. You buy them. We outfit them here.
Oh, okay.
It'll take 6-8 weeks.
Okay.
So
All right. Are we in agreement that the minutes should just show that these funds have been transferred from general fund to cum cap?
Well, I think
So that we know now where they are. We've made note of that so that we can do further discussion
that's fine.
rather than trying to transfer them now without further discussion. Is that agreeable?
It hasn't been put them yet. It's just been in order to put it back into the line item to actually use, it needs.
Okay.
so it's in a holding pattern basically.
So it's my
To go to
understanding that
QCAP.
once the insurance check is issued, it goes into the general fund. And what we need to do is make it available for the sheriff department when the vehicles become available to be outfitted.
I believe we put it into the cum cap fund already. Trying to remember, it's been weeks ago, but
We put in the cum cap because that's where the car line item has always been. And that's not, we're not dealing with, $3,000 to $5,000. It's 48. So I felt the higher amount was better placing it there because it could sit there for 6 to 7 months and we can draw off that. We can make the claims to that on the build when it comes later in the year. That's why the amount is why I wanted the cum cap and not the garage fund.
but if you want them to be able to use that money, then it needs to be approved to put it in the cash balance, basically.
Okay, it needs to be there. So you know what it's for.
So we need a motion to approve the transfer of these funds to cum cap
Yep. We put that into line item.
to be put in the line item for cum cap and removed from the general fund. Is that correct?
It's not in the general.
Okay. Tell me what it needs to say then, Tamara.
Just needs to be approved to be put into the line item for use and use. I wish I knew that line item off the top of my head, but I don't. So
Is this something that we need to do now, or can we just do it next month?
But no hurry.
Once we've got all the numbers and line
We've
items,
got
that's
the
correct.
sheet, I guess. I didn't bring it because I
I
can't
have
start
to
here.
check.
But you wanted the line item, is that what you want?
I think we want what we vote on to be accurate and complete rather than vague.
Okay.
And since the money's sitting there and not
It's
going
not
to be
going
used,
anywhere. It's fine.
is that a problem for the auditor?
Nope.
Okay, so if you're in agreement, we will table this till next month. so that we have the specific language.
What are you missing, I guess?
We need to know where the money, what line the money is
Oh, where
in
it's sitting
now
at right
and where
now.
it's being transferred to.
I just know it's going to Cume Cap because that's where the money comes from. Or
Well-
pulls from the car, but I just don't know, right, with Tamla.
What
I did-
account?
Yeah.
You know what account it is?
No, I don't know. On Cume Cap or? No. I have a sheet there. I can get it here in a second. If you want me to go out and call Jody, she brought back the paperwork yesterday. There was a line just for no. I can wait. It's no hurry. It really isn't.
What's the council's pleasure?
I think Councilman Jim would like to wait and discuss it. So if we attend it to next meeting, that'd be.
Well, and if Councilman Wheeler is wanting to use the safety, I think we should address that at the same time, so it's not being moved to multiple places. I mean, really, that way it's only
Next month.
once, correct?
We
We
just,
should address that.
being new, like to know the safety account, and I understand QCAP and that there's go, but I'd like to understand what safety is for, and what money, where the money is went so far. I'm not in disagreement, I just want
Sure.
to see the history of that account.
So the auditor would bring that to us next month? Or- Okay.
Well, thank you, Jason. We'll make sure your money doesn't disappear. That's our job.
Chad, you got any input on that?
No, we don't. I mean, the line item is for vehicles is in cap now. I'm indifferent to it. If you want to move that line item, the safety tax, I think the commissioners are totally comfortable with that.
Okay, we'll work on that and get information from the auditor for the next month's meeting. Thank you. Salary ordinance amendment is that next on the agenda. This is regarding the funds that we, additional coronavirus relief funds that we voted last month for Scott Wagner for the additional hours. Any need for further discussion on this? We discussed it significantly last month. Do I have a motion to approve the salary ordinance amendment for the health fund coronavirus relief in the amount of $6,000 for the year?
I thought we already approved this.
We approved it, we just didn't amend the salary ordinance.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to amend the salary ordinance, raise your right hand. And may the minutes show it was unanimous by all members present.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is the ordinance 2019-11 amendments. And Jennifer's going to come speak to that.
Morning.
Morning.
Jennifer Shinabery, HR Director. So this ordinance was discussed last meeting. It's in regards to the salary schedule and compensation policies. We discussed primarily the amendments that would allow employees that are now classified as excluded to be treated similarly to non-exempt in regards to receiving overtime and compensation or compensatory time. I did take the liberty of cleaning the ordinance up just a little bit, and I sent you a red line version so that you could see what amendments I made. Just to clarify some things, for example, on page 4, it referred to a form that does not exist. So I replaced it with the title of the form that does exist. If you have any other questions on the amendments that I did, but I did have the assistance from Gary Johnson, who is a labor attorney out of Fort Wayne that we contract with. I also ran all of the amendments by list, and both were in approval of what we were wanting to amend.
So essentially on page 1, you eliminated funds that we do not have at the very top, County Park and Recreation Fund and Aviation Fund. So cleaning that up. And then you, in letter C at the bottom of the page, you corrected the language regarding compensatory time and overtime for those excluded employees, as we had discussed earlier. Page 3, we should note, as we have discussed earlier, new position request from department heads and elected officials should be submitted between January 1 and April 30th of the calendar year, and reclassification requests for existing positions shall be submitted between January 1 and April 30th of the calendar year, so that everyone is aware of those changes as well.
And that's basically what it said, just the wording was poor, so I put in dates so that it was very clear to people.
Any questions for Jennifer? Do I have a motion to accept this amendment to ordinance 2019-11?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, are we gonna get a proper one without the red lines in?
I did bring a clean copy.
Great. That's what, very good.
And you want an individual copy or
No.
oh,
I
for the
just wanted-
signature?
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't think we should sign a red line. Good, thank you.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. And it passes unanimously.
Oh, no, we don't miss the.
Highway Department. Yep.
I didn't know if you wanted me to address the next item or.
Go ahead.
Okay,
And you and Chad and Katie.
okay. Well, as you know, we have the need for some restructuring at the highway department, and Katie is our new highway director. The commissioners also decided that it would be best in that restructuring to reinstate the foreman position, which is a position that used to be in existence, I guess, before my time, but but before we did that officially, we wanted to bring it to you because it's somewhat of a unique situation in that we have a job description, we have a salary, the position used to be in existence, but it is currently. So we wanted to make sure we went through the proper steps and got your approval for that. In doing so, we're also eliminating what was the assistant director position. So we will be eliminating that position, which it's my understanding that that was the person that was in that position that recently retired used to be the foreman and was promoted to assistant director. And when he was promoted, that's when the foreman position went away. So we're just wanting to swap it back to how it used to be. So before we proceed with hiring that person, we wanted to bring it to you for approval.
So essentially, this is approval of a new position.
Right.
And it's already been run through WIS.
Yes, we already had a job description. They reviewed it again and provided us with a current salary. So, and I put that in an email to you. I don't know if you still have that information or want that, but
What was that amount?
The base salary is $55,138.
And the commissioners are good with this change?
Yeah, absolutely, we are. Yeah, we didn't see a need for an assistant director any longer.
I'd agree with you.
The foreman position just seems far more appropriate.
So my next question is, what are you doing with the engineer?
We can get to that later.
Okay, all right.
Do I have a motion to approve the new position of Highway Department Foreman?
I make a motion that we approve the highway foreman position.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Point of, Katie, then you have a assistant for the bookkeeping or,
We have interviews for a new office manager actually
Okay.
this Wednesday, so that person hopefully will be opportunity to provide 2 weeks notice to a current employer.
we had basically 3 people, and we're gonna still have 3 people, correct? Okay.
And the assistant director was essentially the on-site, on-the-road project person, and the foreman will be doing that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the new Highway Department Foreman position, show your approval by raising your right hand. All in favor? And it is unanimous of all those voting and present. Longevity pay discussion.
Right now, we do our longevity in November. The longevity does affect our overtime rate, so we'll have to go through and manually change everyone's overtime rate in November and again in January. So we're trying to longevity to January instead of November. That way we
So that's to be calculated for the previous year.
correct. So we would normally pay out November 2022, but instead we would pay it January 2023.
2022, okay.
I have a question. Why do we put the longevity pay in there to figure their overtime hourly rate? We what?
We legally have to include that.
Why do we, okay,
We checked around about that too, with our software company and with some other counties and things, and they're all saying.
I didn't think that, I don't think it should be included in there personally. I mean, that's not their salary, their pay, whatever you want to say, that's just a one-time, once a year longevity pay, and then we have to figure that. That's just me. Okay, but legally, we have to pay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Did that come from the state or it just came from the software?
They work very well, very closely with the state and follow all the state laws. And they go to like all the state conferences with us and everything, so.
Okay.
And this is in no way going to eliminate a year of anyone's longevity pay, just will be paid essentially in arrears.
If an employee is no longer employed on 12/31, would he still be eligible for the longevity after that?
No, unfortunately
So they work January to the last day of December, put their notice in to leave the last day of the year. You don't calculate their longevity pay till January 3rd. They lose their longevity pay for the year? That doesn't seem right.
I believe how it works is, as long as you pick a date of the year, we pick a date, and that's whatever date's paid out of whoever's employed at that time.
Yeah, that can't be.
I'm sure you can approve it however you want to approve it.
I don't think that's fair. Because you're gonna put your notice in at some point, you should be able to get your longevity pay if you want to retire. You put your date in to retire, and you're saying you're not gonna get your longevity pay, even though you've worked it. That doesn't seem right.
No, we're just,
I'm kind of on the spot here, I'm thinking about
Okay.
it. So I guess if they worked till 12/31, they would still be active that first week of January. So they should still be able to receive it because they're still technically active.
Okay, well,
So
we'll need to make sure, that we're not harming anyone in that.
my recollection, go ahead.
Okay.
yes. As long as the employee is active in our system and they haven't received their last paycheck, there shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah,
If they put in their notice in mid-December and they're no longer an active employee anymore, I don't think we would be able to pay them.
Okay.
Well, my recollection was that it was still going to be figured in November, but that may or may not be the case, just wouldn't be paid until January. So we'll have to get clarification on that.
And just as a recommendation, maybe we should look at the policy too, on the commissioner side and review that, because really longevity is a retention tool.
Mhm.
It's a way to show appreciation for people who are staying long-term.
Mhm.
And so, I think that we probably collectively, commissioners and council, should look at how best to use that tool anyway. But I feel that if someone is employed for a full year and it doesn't get paid out to the next year, they should
I do
be
too.
eligible. I'm in agreement with Joan that they should receive it. We want to make sure we're fair.
So Tiffany just kind of chimed in for me. She said that from her understanding, we would still be using the November date to see who would qualify for that. So as long as they're still here
In November.
and, mid-November.
I would think somehow in that, in Gateway or however you do that, there's got to be, the computer's got to be set up automatically. We'll still pay them. We're just saying when they get paid, not the end date. So I would think they'd still be paid for that year of service.
Yeah, we're not intending to change the eligibility date.
No.
And this was actually driven by the software changes, that the payment actually be received in the following fiscal year.
Tamara, how is the software changes working? Is it helpful?
Yeah, it's gonna have its ups and downs there for the beginning process of it.
The learning curve? Okay.
They've given us plenty of training and they meet us twice a week, something we've never had with the previous one.
Okay, good.
Are any of the other elected officials that are interfacing with the software have any comments regarding its usefulness or value? We're all in agreement that we're miles ahead of where we were with the last software. Maybe. So
On the issue of longevity, I think Chad's correct. We need to see if the policy says anything, personnel policy. And then I think we need to make sure that we tell our employees well in advance, because I would assume that a lot of them used after Christmas. So they will not be receiving that monies in November, so they can plan for it. So we need to make sure that they get, they know well in advance that they're making this change.
So is it the council's pleasure that we vote approving that the change will happen? Or do we want to wait until we've reviewed the policy and had the information come back to us about those other issues?
Need to review.
Have a motion to table then?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Board appointments and assignments. Council members, you have the list of assignments before you. Is there anyone that would express a desire to change to a different assignment? We could then discuss that possibility.
I believe we need to add one assignment to it on the JDAI. And I serve on that, and I would like to serve again.
I think we have Region 318 that we agreed to go with them also.
Was you on that?
Yeah.
Jim?
Okay, is there a need to read this into the record? Okay. Express your desire if you'd like a particular position at this point in time, please. Then for the record, Community Corrections Advisory Board, Tim Comfer. EMS Oversight Committee, Kim Wheeler. Emergency Management, Tom Warner. Joint Advisory Board, Jim Argabright and Kim Wheeler. Planning Commission, Thor Hodges. Redevelopment Commission, Kim Wheeler. Senior Citizens Center, Joan Western. LEPC Local Emergency Plan Committee, John Barrett. EDC Economic Development Corporation, Timothy Comfer. Solid Waste Board, Thor Hodges. Pretrial Services Program, John Barrett. Personnel Committee, hearing no other volunteers, Tom Warner, Tim Comfer, Joan Western. JDIA, John Barrett, and Region 3A Representative Jim Argabright. Are there any other assignments that we need to make? There are appointments to be made, but in my last year's appointment sheet, there are dates attached with these that do not coincide with the beginning of the year. So I quite honestly am not clear on what appointments need to be made this month. So with your permission, unless someone can inform me.
Are they all different dates you have? Are they all spring?
Let's see, some are July, November. There is two that actually those are at the end of this year. See, we have two separate lists, so I feel like we need clarification before we
If
make
they're
any
not up
further
yet, we shouldn't
appointments.
appoint.
Right. And anything that I have a date for is not anyone who is currently no longer serving. We're up for a new term. So with your permission, we will table this. Agreed?
Agreed.
Commissioners report. Welcome our new chair of the commissioners.
Thank you. So yesterday's commissioner meeting, we had the election of officers, obviously, and I took the chairman's seat. Commissioner Green is vice chair. In our meeting, we talked about and voted on and approved and are requesting to use seated dollars. We have a request for the use of seated to pay for EMS. And I talked to some of you before the meeting, but basically there's a trust fund at the community foundation that covers, oftentimes covers portions of the bill to Parkview for our ambulance services, which is a requirement that we have contracted ambulance service. But then last year, it was only approved to use $75,000 from that trust. So there's an outstanding balance of $125,000. And we just want to be able to use seated dollars to pay that outstanding balance. And we're not going to ask for an encumbrance. We're just going to take that out of our 2022 budget of on-site, off-site, and our seated budget. But since it's unplanned, we're coming to you just to ask for that.
This is to cover 2021.
That's right.
2022 is the same offer.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure yet what the trust will pay in 2022. So I guess we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get there and figure out how much more we're going to need in the remaining balance.
Is it always paid in arrears?
That's a great question. I'm not really sure. I mean, we received invoices, one in July, one in January, July of 2020, another in January, another in August. So we're receiving invoices. It seems like maybe we're paying as we go, but that trust would always just pay a portion. And I was always under the impression that it paid half, but I was incorrect. It was just, it had been paying half, and now the interest can't sustain making half of the payment. So
On those invoices you just indicated, are those paid or they're not paid? The ones that you just,
they're unpaid. That's why we're asking
from
for them.
2020?
Yeah, so it started in 2020.
Okay, well, it needs to be paid.
Yeah. So this has been going on since the beginning of the year, where invoices were coming in unpaid. And we were saying, well, the community foundation needs to pay their share. And they were saying, but it's not our share. You guys are on the hook to pay it. And then recently, minutes were brought to me from the Whitley County Parkview Whitley EMS committee, where it showed that $75,000 was approved, and they'll pay that, but we still have to pay $125,000. So we're just asking that we be able to use our seated budget to pay that.
You haven't used all that seated money anyway, right?
No,
You're not up to
it's
75?
unspoken for. We have $250,000 in our on-site, off-site budget for 22. So we're just going to use half of that, 125,000, and pay what's past due. And then we'll just address whatever becomes due this year, because I don't think this board has met. And are you on that board?
Yeah, I went to a meeting on it. That's when we talked about the cots for the EMSs that we appropriated some funds for and that. So that fund started out years ago at 1.5 million when Parkview bought the hospital. Over the years, the report said we had it had divvied out $2 million to support the EMS ambulances, and that county was paying $400,000 to $500,000 before. That had been reduced. I don't know why and how there's $2 million in that fund that still helps EMS. So you think that it was 1.5, it's grown to 2 million, plus they've dispersed 2 million. So the fund's done what it was supposed to do, just help keep our EMS services down.
I'm making we need
a motion.
I make a motion that we allow the commissioners to use a on-site, off-site funds to pay for the EMS.
I'll second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. And let the minute show is unanimous by all members present and voting. If I may interrupt, does that mean that we need to assign Jim to this board?
I believe so.
Okay, and what is the name of this board?
So it's actually the Community Foundation board for the Whitley County / Parkview Whitley EMS Committee. And it consists of 2 members from Parkview, a representative from the county commissioners, a representative from county council, and a representative from the Community Foundation. And I've asked for the bylaws. I just asked yesterday morning. So I'll make sure that we have a copy of those on file, but it should be your appointment to that board.
And you're happy to continue doing it. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Chad.
Also at yesterday's meeting, we heard from Chad Nix from the Regional Sewer District, and they had applied for a grant, and in their application it was 10 million. They were awarded 5 million, and they've identified some projects that they need to move forward with. And so they came to us with a request to help them by giving them ARP money. And that's absolutely an approved use of ARP funds, something that we can use those dollars for. And so we did not agree to giving them any ARP funds. I think their request is somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, and that could allow them to move forward with the projects and also lower our constituents' monthly bill. Some of the numbers they threw out, I really didn't feel comfortable with, like $174 a month sewer bill, but they're not willing to approve that. That's why they're coming to us to ask that we supplement things so that we can, the money that we would provide to them would help to crush sewer septics or pay for grinder stations or something to bring the cost down and bring their monthly rates down as well. So it's something that the commissioners are considering. It's something personally I'm in favor of, but I wanted to make you aware. And I think we should probably pull together the people who are on that ARP committee to discuss and see how we would like to help them. I think their initial request right now, what they want is like 340, maybe 350,000, because they want to phase it in. So the total would be somewhere around $1 million, but upfront initially they're asking for just 350,000. So it's something that we want to talk to Baker Tilly about, and we want to pull together the ARP committee and just carefully consider it before we pull the trigger. But I want all of you to just be aware of it.
Have they indicated the number of households this is going to help? Or they're not to that
I'm not
point
sure,
yet?
but after the meeting, I'll give you the paperwork that they gave
Okay.
us.
I would note that these are the 3 areas that have been identified as IDM areas that we have to address. They're creating, do you want to speak to the health hazard, Scott?
So to start, lower level, so these areas are considered by the regional sewer district based upon a number of factors. One, environmental impact is the first largest one. You know, where have we had septic problems in the past? Where are our problems right now? So when we look at those areas, they identified for the first round, north and south of Busco, Coessie, Dunphy, the 9 properties south of Dunphy on 800 East and Staple Acres. And so that total project cost is $10+ million. We only got 5. So if they did everything, it'd be $174 a month. They're not gonna do that. So they want to break it up in 2 phases. Do the southern portion, Coessie and South first, Busco second, because they haven't got their contract with them yet done. And the 350,000 would complete that southern project with 0 debt. And so that way they could have those prices for homeowners at $80 to $90 a month, which is below the state standard of $100 a month right now. And that way they can start off with good standing with that. And then the other money would be a seed money for the continuing projects to go down the road. And what they want to do from here on out is if they establish a rate of say $85 a month, they want to continue that rate for all the other customers in the future. So we're hoping to have that seed money then to continue that. So everybody in the sewer district gets the same kind of pay from that point on. One of the questions that Commissioner Green brought up is, these are only a certain amount of people that are being favored. And that is true. I don't know how you get around that. There's just some parts of the county that are going to be more affected than others. But typically, if you look at your small growth centers, your Coesses, your Collins, your Lauds, Dunphy's, things like that, those are the places that we're looking at getting infrastructure there, along with the Plan Commission. That's our idea, is to grow those existing locations because they've been plotted that we preserve farm ground as well as looking at those centers. So that's kind of the goal going forward. But these would be the first projects to start with. And yes, they've been identified as having major septic issues. I think everybody kind of knows that.
And I think I would add that people that are currently paying no sewer bill would not feel like they're being favored by being forced to hook up and then pay.
So are they going to put in just one regional plan, or how's that?
So the goal of the sewer district is not to operate that. They're going to use existing providers. So everybody in, so Coesse already has Columbia City. So Columbia City is the provider for that.
Okay.
So they negotiate a rate with them. Just like Busco, we negotiate a rate with Busco Town.
Okay.
Aqua, Indiana, South Whitley. We negotiate rates with those areas, and we already have a plan in place for everybody except for Churubusco.
Okay.
That's why they're saying, maybe let's do that next year or the year after, because we don't have a plan yet with them.
So this is just to hook up each household and get it to
the location.
South Whitley or
Yes.
Churubusco or wherever.
I know in the southern project, Aqua, Indiana has already pledged $100,000 to that project already. So they were willing to move their lift station from Micropulse westward 1 mile to 400, which is just this far off of Stable Acres. So that really helps the project.
Okay. Thank you.
Scott, or Chad, where do you getting this money from?
Our funds.
Our
The American
funds?
Rescue Plan funds. I think we have somewhere around 6.2 million. So just kind of makes sense that since one of the categories where that money can be used is regional sewer or sewer district projects, it kind of makes sense to me to do it. It's important that we. My fear is, since the rules are always changing on this whole park thing, that today we commit money and then tomorrow they change the rules, say you can't use it for that. So that's why I'm leaving it in the paper till you are making sure that we're proper and correct. And I would feel most comfortable using the money on this because it's so clearly written that it can be. Well, I'm scared the rules might change, but I don't think they will for this.
The gentleman from JRP yesterday did indicate that the state of Indiana is to get double the amount of funds for their sewer projects for next year. So they're comfortable that if they were able to move forward this year on the southern projects, that next year they'll be funded again to be able to finish Busco if they can get an agreement. So
Can you just explain who GRP is?
JRP is the engineering firm that the sewer district has hired to help them run the program to get started. And then they may also be the people who we use billing for and things like that. That way they don't have to hire a staff and a location and things like that.
Anything else?
Just a couple more things. Just in case you missed it, for your awareness, in December, we executed a contract with Elevadis for sign on jail. And we also executed a contract with BW Construction as an owner's rep. Jeff from BW is working on scheduling a kickoff meeting to get all the players in the room and start talking about timelines. And one of the dates that was kicked out was the 17th of this month. And so we'll get with everyone and let them know. I mean, as far as members of council, and try to get as many people there as we can. Just to hear from BW, obviously it wouldn't be a meeting. Stretch and just be informational. So we'll look into what happens. And then Tom, revisiting something you brought up about the engineering position. All I can really say is we're still exploring what we should do, what the best option would be. We thought, I mean, if I'm frank, I was a little blindsided by Brandon leaving. And so I thought we had more time to explore what the options were, but we don't. Here we are. We met with Beam Longest and Neff, which is an engineering resource service, a vendor. We're meeting with DLZ, which is another engineering service. And so we're just exploring having what they call an on-call engineer, signing some sort of contract that says, when we need you, we can call you and you come and sign off on what we need signed off. We met with the engineering department, and the lion's share of what Brandon was doing there was related to drainage. And there were about 15 projects a year. So we know that if things stay the course, then we'll need an engineer about 15 times a year there. And then I don't know how much we'll need an engineer for highway department. But I'll just say this personally. I can't speak. I won't speak for the other two commissioners, but personally, it was hard to make a justification for a full-time engineer when it had been a part-time engineer position for at least 5 years. And when we were asked to separate that contract and have a highway director and an engineer, it just was hard to make the justification.
Yeah, well, I agree.
I was willing to go back for that. I was willing to come and say, I support this, but then I didn't get the opportunity because our engineer left. So
The
continue to explore.
funds that we get from the state for an engineer, what happens to that
If we don't have one, I don't know.
If I may, I do know that the $40,000 that comes for the state will only be given. Not the salary that did go towards the current engineer will no. And also just to interject, just for thought, the engineer primarily is responsible for all of the county bridges as well. So that is something to be taken in consideration as there is the bridge contract that we already have in place that you monitoring those projects, and then also continuing on with the LPA vouchers and things that we have in place. And that is something to be taken into consideration that should be responsible for.
But correct me if I'm wrong, we're already paying someone else to do our bridge inspections.
We have engineering resources that does our bridge inspections.
ERI,
but as
right?
far as
Yep.
executing those contracts or choosing the firm that's responsible for it, specific plans for the maintenance of bridges, that primarily was Brandon on the engineer side of it.
So that was, you hired them just to inspect the bridges.
Engineering resources is who does the bridges.
And then who is in charge of designing or deciding when it's time for a new bridge now? Would that still fall on the engineer, or would that fall over to you now?
As far as, before I knew that Brandon was actually leaving, it was my understanding that the engineer would still retain.
Okay.
And the highway, the county highway up to the bridges would then just by default be highway.
Okay.
But I don't think any of that's going to get missed because ERI does the annual bridge inspection. So they'll tell us something needs to happen. And we'll continue meeting with potential engineering services. And another thought that we've kicked around, we have not yet approached the city, but maybe there's an opportunity to employ an engineer. At one time, they were looking for a part-time, and maybe it would be appropriate for us to have a part-time. So maybe that's something that we could share between Columbia City and Community County.
Chad, what is the builder's rep gonna cost on jail project?
So we did a short-term contract, an upfront initial contract with VW. And I think it's not to exceed 20,000. Kimmy, do you recall? It's not to exceed 20,000. That gets the project rolling. That owner's rep will serve as a point man, a lead man on all things that we need to get done. So he'll work with Baker Tilly, he'll work with Ice Miller, he'll work with Elevatis. Later down the road, we'll have to explore whether or not we want an owner's rep or if we would rather do a construction manager approach. The only difference is that I'll just use an example of why Gatton is a construction manager. They offer that. That'll go to bid. We can hire our owner's rep as professional services, but a construction manager has to go to bid. But someone like Wygand would do it. They would oversee hiring all of the subcontractors. They would oversee the timelines of bills and that sort of thing. An owner's rep does the same thing, but we have to decide later what's most appropriate. Overall, for the total cost of the project, if we continued with an owner's rep, we're probably looking at somewhere around 300,000 for the total project. As we talk to other counties, they tell us they're worth their weight in gold. They're, a lot of times an owner's rep will save you money in the long run and pay for themselves because they're identifying things that are waste. They're identifying things that we just don't need, or maybe they're finding things that if we don't do, we'll really regret it. So we selected VW because of their experience in the jail space. It's a sister company their name escapes me, but it's the second, it's the other leading jail construction company. RQAW, yep. It's their sister company.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Minutes of the December 7th meeting. Anyone have any additions, corrections, or changes? I just noted 2 items on the last page under Commissioner's Report. 3rd line down, Region 3A for help with grants. They would no longer use our current, and should that say contractor, grant writer? You see where I'm looking? Do we need another word in there? Current
Well-
grant writer, current contractor for grant writing?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And shouldn't I say we would not no longer use our current grant writer?
I think it's commissioners is who it's referring to,
So you're saying they need to identify.
who
after
we're not
current.
using.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, current.
You just need to complete the sentence.
But our current contracted grant writer, is that too cumbersome?
Mm-mm.
And also under other business, 3rd line down, Elevatis, they're also working on the 1263 House bill that includes public, I think that should say hearings instead of hears. Does that make sense? So I guess to do this properly, first, do I have a motion to accept the minutes
Motion, we accept the minutes with corrections.
with the corrections? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. It is unanimous. Councilman Barrett,
I have nothing.
Councilman West, Councilperson, Council Member Western,
No.
No.
Councilman Augubright,
Nothing.
Councilman Thomas.
I have none.
You have nothing? And I have nothing. Camera? Anything from those in attendance here at the meeting today? Seeing no other concerns to be discussed, I will call the meeting adjourned.
You keep them, or you don't? Because they haven't